It's hard to make sense of this war when the Russians simply kill and destroy everything in their way. I kept asking myself what the Russians are attempting to conquer and what their aim is. There's nothing left for them to take.
Very, very loud air raid sirens. About 3-4 kilometers away from the Russians advancing, and people are very nervous. A lot of people are trying to evacuate and to leave. Just apocalyptic out here.
There was a lot of sloppy and lazy journalism from Western press, and I was very frustrated, and I told myself somehow, in some way, I'm going to change this, and I'm going to fight and provide a Ukrainian perspective to the world and what's actually happening in Ukraine. And so over the years, just started writing. It took me years, but I never gave up. I never realized the role that I would need to play in a few years when Russia full-on invaded the rest of Ukraine.
I'm a Ukrainian-American from Washington State. My parents immigrated to the United States in 1989 as religious refugees from the Soviet Union. A few days before the war broke out, I was calling family in Ukraine and checking in with them because I believed that the invasion was happening. I remember seeing the news and that speech by Vladimir Putin, and then just the bombings on TV. And then just talking with family, and they're hiding in their basements and shelters, and like they could hear bombings, and you're like, this is it, it's here. For the first week or so, I was just paralyzed watching the TV, like every moment, no sleep. And eventually I was just like, I have to do something. I can't just watch this war unfold. Throughout the war, you started to see the soldiers becoming heavily reliant on Starlinks and drones. And the drones were like off the shelves, so I always just order a couple of suitcases full and pack them into my bags with Starlinks and just use my own money. I think even within many members of the Ukrainian-American community here is like, I feel like an outcast, sometimes a radical. Others view me as being somebody who's reckless by going out to the front and spending time with soldiers and documenting their stories. Here we have a couple that has been serving in the army.
Hi.
This drone unit that I was with, they're one of the, they're called Yasny Ochi, which translates to clear eyes in Ukrainian of the 23rd. It was actually started by Grigori Volkov. He was like a business professional. He had like a marketing digital agency, had nothing to do whatsoever with the war. At the start of the war, he thought like, I need to go out there and do something. And so he started organizing people to do like drone reconnaissance missions in the city to make sure that there was no looting going on, no sabotage. And so he went and worked with the police. He called like one of his former clients that did an advertising campaign for him, and he had a drone. So he's like, hey, get out here and come help me patrol the city. And then he created, I don't know if it was on Telegram or some other app, he called it Yasny Ochi, Clear Eyes. And he started gathering more and more volunteers. And then with time, he became connected with the military and started getting former lessons on like military. And when they actually went out to the front lines, they saw that many of the soldiers like were just starting to learn how to use drones in the first months of the war, and they weren't that familiar with it. Where some of these drone hobbyists were like drone enthusiasts, they knew how to fly drones well. And so they saw an opportunity that like, we can actually make an impact. And so they worked with some of the soldiers that already knew some of the drone warfare aspects, and they started building training courses, and they were coming out to the front more and more often. And then eventually they were like created a drone unit within the 23rd Mechanized Brigade. I spent about a week with that drone unit in Chasiv Yar. And one of the missions that I went on was on a reconnaissance mission. And so they were using a German, I believe, vector drone, and they were flying it around Chasiv Yar and Bakhmut, and just looking for Russian targets and mapping out, trying to figure out of like where are the Russian supply lines. Like every part of the front line, there's just drones hovering back and forth. everything is monitored, movements are tracked. But if you can kill that drone unit, or like the drone pilots in the area, then you have an advantage, like for however long, till they can get another. And so both sides, typically if they spot where the drone pilots are, it's the highest priority. They'll redirect all the resources to try to kill those drone pilots. And the Ukrainians produce many of their own drones, but then also at the bases, they'll 3D print parts. The drone unit also has like engineers, both like creating new types of bombs in the kitchen, and then a central engineer, he's always working, the lead engineer is always working on all these new technologies, new night vision for the FPV drones, like always experimenting every single day. So on multiple missions that I went on, the engineer was giving like new types of tech for the soldiers to use and to experiment with to see what works better. And then the cooks were also giving, like, to me it seemed like flying Molotov cocktails, but liquid flammables into bottles. And so when the Russians run and they start digging and they're hiding out, they drop that, it burns the area, and the Russians quickly get up and run, and then the drone flies back and they attach small bombs, fly after them and drop them and like hunt them down. So they're always experimenting with different types of bombs. And
call them cooks?
Yeah, they call them cooks, yeah. And so the kitchen where they make all these bombs and produce them is called the kitchen.
Да, тут, блядь, пару качків, а ці хуй.
So I was with the tank unit that have been fighting for the Battle of Toretsk. And this tank unit, they were previously deployed in southern Ukraine at the start of the war in Kherson, and now they're fighting in Donetsk Oblast. And what they shared is that at the start of the war there were far fewer FPV drones, so the Ukrainian tanks were far more active, venturing out into the open and shooting. Now it's they serve more of the role of artillery, so once they get out from cover, they drive out and they shoot. What they told me, more of mobile artillery. Even around where their tanks are, there's just enemy drones buzzing around the area searching for heavy armor. So anytime that they go out, it's like they need to be really quick. If you're caught stranded and you're out there too long and an FPV drone worth $500 hits you in the right spot and disables you, it's just gonna bring more and more drones until they fully like destroy your tank. And so it's like you're being hunted by these cheap drones that can take out your multi-million-dollar tank. I believe majority of the guys actually consisted of people from southern Ukraine, like Kherson, Mykolaiv, Odessa, so from the southern parts of Ukraine. And so for them, they were actually like, they much favored fighting at the start of the war when they were in their home regions. And now that tank unit, majority of the guys who are southern Ukraine are in the east, and they're like, it's different. It's still your country, but you're in a slightly different, you're in a different region in the east.
Давай, контролюй, контролюй! Белый, 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 я пошел! Плюс, плюс, сюда, подтягивай, подтягивай!
Through the help of my friends, also went to southern Ukraine and Zaporizhia, and went to the training ground where the soldiers were practicing how to storm trenches. And actually, I didn't know that there were so many Colombians there. I think there was a recent case last month of the two Colombian soldiers detained in Venezuela, sent back to Russia. So a lot of them don't want their identities revealed. I actually became somewhat of a distraction because the Colombian soldiers, they're talking with me, they're trying to take pictures with me, like, wow, look at press from America. And then the commanders are busy trying to practice how to storm trenches, and the Colombian soldiers are like doing some moves, singing in Spanish, and just conversing with me. And then you actually see these soldiers practicing how to storm trenches, and it's like, the Colombians don't speak Ukrainian, the Ukrainians don't speak Spanish, and the commander, Dima, he's like, the most important thing about storming trenches or taking an enemy position is communication. It's like, you always gotta be with one another yelling, what do you see, what's going on?
Рисуля, давай, давай! Давай, давай! 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 Пойдем, пойдем!
They're trying to use some English, some Spanish, some Ukrainian to one another, and these soldiers just get ready, like get out of the van and just start like charging into positions. Everybody's running around throwing Spanish, English, Ukrainian around. You're just like, this is hard. A lot of the Colombian soldiers have experiences fighting the cartel, and so for them it's like they've seen conflict, but for them, like seeing drones on this scale, glide bombs, grad rockets, and trying to storm like trenches is something that they've never experienced. And so, of course, the commander told me there was cases of Colombian soldiers like seeing the first glide bomb or like their first like friend near them getting blown to pieces, and they just like drop their gun and they're like, fuck it, I'm out of here. Even in the Foreign Legion, just read and heard about cases of even like American and foreign soldiers coming to Ukraine. And for them, when they fought in Afghanistan and other wars where you have like, if you're pinned down, you can call air support, artillery. And in many cases in Ukraine, when you're on the front and you're on the trenches, like nobody's coming to rescue you, you have no air support, nothing. And so there was numerous foreign soldiers that left just because like, this isn't war, this is death, like you're going to die here. It's like you're outgunned, the odds are so highly stacked against you. I guess in the context of David Goliath, this is David with his hands tied fighting against Goliath. How do you expect Ukraine to hold on? Like, do we just expect Ukraine to fight until the last person? Because the Russians are willing to sacrifice millions of its own people. As a Ukrainian-American from Washington State, it's like I have a unique voice, and I need to do whatever I can to help.
Ну что еще сказать? Мирного нам, скорее, чтобы война кончилась, чтобы все вернулись домой.
Like I do believe that the future of humanity is on the line, and what happens in Ukraine will determine the next few decades and the types of wars that we will fight. And so I just think to myself, first, it's like, what can I do every day to try to save more lives? Then two is like, what can I do, just everything in my power to fight and to help in this cause. And to me, it feels justice, it feels right.
Спасибо вам, спасибо, дорогие. Спасибо, пускай Господь хранит от всего нехорошего. Давайте с Богом.
Бережіть себе, добре?
Добре.
Здоров'я вам.
І вам теж все.
Чекаємо на вас,
Ага.
що ви подзвонили нам.
There's no way to explain it, but I just feel that ancestral connection from my family, and I feel motivated every day, and the same spirit that I felt as a child, I still feel today, and it still like burns within me. And so it's just, there's no question about it. I never question if I'm doing the right thing or not. I just know that I have to do it, and so I just do it.